everybody, and welcome back. My name is Sue, and I'm from OML Embroidery, and this is a Sewingverse. So let's first talk about feet. For this sewing together, I like to use the joining foot. It has a nice piece down the middle that helps you keep lines straight. Now remember, this is only a beginner's guide to everything, so you can use whatever foot you're more comfortable with. Now, take your blocks. This is from the Anita Good Design fancy flock that I did. There's a video, I'll put up a link, and you can watch that. It's done on the embroidery machine. But this video, we're going to sew them together. So I am on my Brother Quilt Club sewing machine. Yes, you need pins. So this is how I like to put the blocks together, and they usually come out pretty perfectly, so I'm pretty happy with that. So we want to first place our pin through one corner and through the second corner. That's important. That's because we want all the lines lined up. We don't have to worry about, seam allowance or anything because we have these wonderful lines. So when I push the pin through, I like to make sure that the lines on the sides are also matched up. So it's matched in the front, and then I looked at the back to see, to make sure that they're lined up, because you want everything to be nice and square and match. So some of it's hard for you guys to see because I use black thread on black fabric, but you'll get the idea of it. And corner to corner, make sure everything lays flat, and then line up the lines again. Now just take your time doing the pinning. It really helps your final look if you can get everything straight, so take your time. So once the corners are done, you can open it up, and again, you can't see the black one. We want to match up the lines again. So that's all I'm doing, just kind of open it up, match it up. You can also feel, because the batting goes just a little bit below the sewing line, so you can feel if there's batting on both sides. So that makes it easy. So I pin it in the middle. Now you don't necessarily have to put these pins, but I like to do it so everything's nice and secure. So line up the line again and pin in between the first corner pin and the middle pin. All right, well, my middle is a little bit off, but that's okay. We don't worry about those small details. And just try your best to get everything lined up properly. Like I said, the finishing look is much better. I always do a quick check, and what I'm checking for here, the top and bottom lines. Now, the lines don't match, so I want to make some adjustments. So the left chicken design is lower than the stripy design. So I need to fix that. It was actually on the bottom, but you couldn't see it. I have to fix that because I want them to be even, so everything matches up and looks good. So I kind of fiddle around with that. I didn't record all of it, but now we're going to go to sewing. So there's two lines that you can see. That's the outside, and that one there is the batting. So you can sew right on the batting line. It doesn't show on the front. The line that shows on the front is the right hand line. So you don't want to sew on the right side of that. You want to sew on the left side of that. So I'm going to start off, and I'm using my foot to line everything up, and you can see that pretty well actually in this video, and it looks great. And make sure your focal point when you start is at the needle, where the needle goes, not the front of the foot, if that makes any sense. You want to make sure that you have everything on enough. Now take out your pins, and when I take out a pin, I use my left hand to hold everything down so nothing moves. So I always have a little bit of pressure on it. And I'm going to do it again. And see, I'm holding it down, and then I hold it with my right hand. And look how nicely I'm following along with that line. I love it. It's perfect. So the right foot for the right job, that certainly helps. So take out another pin, and I'm just going slow. I have my machine set on slow for this video, and I probably will for most videos so you can see exactly what I'm doing. Now make sure you sew right until the end, do a little reverse stitch, and it's good. So when we're putting these together, we're going to put together block 1 and block 2, block 3, block 4, and you're going to sew it on those lines so they're together. Then when they're done, we're going to sew the group, block 1 or A group, and B group. We're going to sew them together, right sides together, and make sure you iron everything flat. Steam iron works a little bit better than my craft iron, but use whatever you have. It's just a little Cricut iron, and it works well enough. So I double check my placement, and now we're going to do the exact same thing as we did for the block to block. So this is A to B. And I'm going to start with the corners, and you can see that one pretty clearly. And then I'm going to pin it and hopefully hit both the lines where I want so everything's even. So I'm just fiddling with it just a little bit. Make it straight. It's easier than it looks. I'm trying to be very precise for the video. But so one side, then the other side. And the next part is going to be in the middle, but that is where our seam is. So you really, really want to match up the middle, because that's what shows, especially if you have, you know, contrasting colors, that you want the middle seams to match up. So I take it, open it up a little bit. Now I use 2 pins for the middle seam, and I want to make sure that it's really lined up. You can see how I'm doing it. Now you have to make sure the middle line is lined up, but also the horizontal lines right there. So it's not just the middle, it's both parts. And it looks really good if you can get it. So take your time on this part. It'll look great. So I'm just going to line everything up, and I do one side, then the other. So don't worry about the other side quite yet. So line up the lines and line up the middle part, and I put 1 pin on one side, and then I do the same thing with the other side. Now that may seem like a little extra work, but I know that my middle crease is going to be perfectly lined up, and it's not going anywhere because it has 2 pins in it. So yeah, and this is why you iron everything too, because you don't want a really bulky seam. So once that's done, then we're going to line up the lines again. Look at me, super speed pinner, and do in the middle between the two. So just the same thing we did before. And then if you want, you can put more pins in if you need to do a little easement, which I had to do here. It wasn't matching up, so I kind of fiddle with it a little bit to make it match up. Now that's good, and I'm checking my lines, and I'm just a little bit off, so I just repin it and double check everything. I double, triple check everything because you know, measure twice, so once, and then open it up, and I can see if my lines are matching. And now we're going to do the exact same thing with the sewing. It's harder to see the lines right here, but I'm doing the exact same thing. You need to sew to the left of the outside line. And it's really nice if you sew it right on the batting line. But it's not hard to do. I'm a little faster on this one. Keep everything nice and flat. Take 1 pin out of the inner seam side, and then take the other one and make sure you press down so it doesn't move, and try to keep it straight over all that fabric. But it's kind of, you know, once you get the hang of it, and you know what, it's an easy stitch. If you do make a mistake when you're done, you can just pick it out easily. I've done it many, 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 many times. But once I get it sewn, I double check before I go anywhere, and perfect. I'm really happy with that. So now you got to do that whole thing all over again with D and E blocks. So 3, 4, 5, and 6. So I guess we'll call it C. And pin the corners, and then we're going to line it up. So underneath there is the ones I just sewed. So block 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and now I'm putting the last ones on. And it is the same thing as what I did with all the other blocks. So we're going to match up the center, and we're going to do on the center line and on the horizontal line. Pin everything down nice and flat, and then we're going to do the middle pins on it, and then we're going to sew it together. And when you're done, you will be very happy with the results. It looks great. Then you just give it a quick iron, and I'll do another video to show you how to finish up. Once you get your blocks put together properly, then it's just a matter of a backing, and you can decide if you want to do binding. And if you don't want to do that, there's a couple options that I will show you to make it easy. So I hope you guys enjoyed the embroidery, and I hope that you enjoy the finishing. And look at this super cute design now that I'm done. Isn't that wonderful? I love the fabric. I love all of it. It's great.